I work the late shift at a small tech repair shop just outside of Portland, Oregon. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays rent and keeps me busy. Most nights, I'm the last one out, sweeping the floor, logging inventory, shutting down the front register. The strip mall, where our shop sits, is quiet after 9 p.m. Every store pulls its gates down, except the 24-hour laundromat across the lot. I usually drive home in silence, cut through the back roads to avoid traffic lights, and listen to some old-school true crime podcasts before bed. It was a routine I liked. Predictable, calm, until one Thursday night last fall. That night, I was finishing up repairs on a customer's cracked iPad screen when someone knocked on the glass front door. It was almost 9:45, well past closing. At first, I thought it was a friend of my boss stopping by, but the person on the other side wasn't familiar. He was wearing a brown hooded jacket with the hood pulled low, his face shadowed by the streetlight behind him. In his hands was a medium-sized cardboard box sealed with red tape. I gestured that we were closed, but he pointed at the box and mouthed, "Delivery." Against my better judgment, I opened the door halfway. "We're not expecting any shipments tonight," I said. He didn't respond right away, just held out the box. The label was smeared, water damaged, but I could still make out part of it. 2-1-1-2-8 Maple Avenue, apartment 3B. That wasn't our address. "This isn't for us," I told him. He tilted his head slightly, like he didn't understand, then said in a low voice that sounded distorted, as if he had something in his mouth, "Please, keep it safe." Before I could respond, he set the box down on the ground and walked away. Not toward the parking lot, not toward the street. He just stepped into the shadows between two buildings and was gone. I stood there for a good 30 seconds, confused. The box looked ordinary, brown cardboard, maybe 12 inches long, but something about it unsettled me. I should have just left it outside, but curiosity got the better of me. I brought it in, set it on the counter, and locked the door. The label's return address was completely illegible, blurred by moisture, or maybe smudged intentionally. I tried to peel back the red tape, but it was thick, industrial, like the kind used for biohazard shipments. When I finally cut it with a box cutter, a strange smell leaked out. Not rot exactly, but metallic, like rust and old pennies. Inside was black tissue paper wrapped tightly around an object. I unrolled it slowly, revealing what looked like a small wooden box, hand-carved, dark mahogany, with intricate etchings along the sides. There was no hinge or latch, just a seamless cube with faint symbols burned into the surface. I'm not the superstitious type, but that thing radiated wrongness. The air around it felt heavier. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello." A pause, then a whisper. "Don't open it." I froze. "Who is this?" "Static." Then the line went dead. When I looked back down, the smaller wooden box had shifted. I swear it moved half an inch closer to me on its own. I stepped back, heart racing, and decided right then to leave it alone. I shoved it into a cabinet beneath the counter and locked up the shop for the night. On the drive home, my headlights flickered twice, something that had never happened before. The radio hissed with static no matter which station I tried, and when I finally parked outside my apartment complex, I thought I saw someone standing by the dumpsters across the lot, wearing a hood. The same silhouette as the delivery guy, but when I blinked, he was gone. That night, I dreamed of the wooden box. It sat at the foot of my bed, humming. Not loud, more like a vibration deep in my bones. Every time I tried to move, my body wouldn't respond. The hum grew into a whisper of my own name. Evan. I woke up drenched in sweat, the clock flashing 3:33 a.m. The next morning, I went back to the shop early. I told myself I'd mail the package to its rightful address and be done with it. But when I opened the cabinet, there was nothing inside, no box. Just the faint metallic smell again, lingering like someone had spilled blood and wiped it away. I called my boss to ask if he'd come in earlier, but he hadn't. He laughed it off, told me I probably misplaced it, but I knew I hadn't. Around noon, a woman came into the store, carrying an old desktop tower. She looked nervous, glancing at the corners of the shop like she expected someone to jump out. When I asked what was wrong with her computer, she said, "It keeps showing things. Videos. Of me sleeping, I frowned. Like hacked webcam footage." She shook her head. "No, it's different. I don't own a webcam. I plugged the tower into our test monitor. The moment it powered on, the screen filled with static, then cleared to show a grainy black and white video feed of what looked like our shop." My stomach dropped as the feed shifted to the back room. Then the cabinet I'd locked the box in. And there it was, the wooden cube, sitting exactly where I'd left it, though the cabinet should have been empty. The woman gasped. "That's it. That's what I saw last night." Before I could ask what she meant, the monitor flickered again. The feed now showed my apartment bedroom, my bed, my sheets, empty except for a dark shape sitting on the floor. The same box. I yanked the plug from the wall. The woman left in tears, refusing a refund, muttering, "You shouldn't have touched it." I closed the shop early that day. When I got home, I triple-checked every log. The metallic smell was in the air again, faint but unmistakable. I searched every room, every closet, nothing. I tried to convince myself it was all some weird coincidence. But when I walked past my bathroom mirror, I stopped cold. Behind my reflection, on the counter, sat the wooden box. I spun around. It wasn't there. The counter was empty. When I looked back at the mirror again, the reflection still showed it. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak in the apartment sounded like a whisper. Every shadow seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at it. At 3:33 a.m., the doorbell rang. That sound shouldn't have scared me as much as it did. But at that hour, 3:33 in the morning, it felt like an alarm, like something announcing that it had found me. I sat up on the couch, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I didn't move at first. I just stared toward the front door, waiting for it to ring again. And it did. 3 sharp chimes this time. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. I got up slowly, every step careful on the creaky floorboards. I didn't say anything, just peered through the peephole. There was no one there. The hallway outside my apartment was empty, lit by the yellow glow of a flickering light bulb. But when I looked down, I froze. Another box sat on the welcome mat, same size, same red tape. For a full minute, I didn't move. Then, stupidly, I unlocked the door. The air in the hallway was cold, colder than it should have been for late summer. I crouched down and examined the box. The label this time was completely blank. No address, no return name. Just the same faint red tape sealing it shut. I didn't bring it inside right away. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? "Hi, someone left a mysterious box at my door after I found a haunted one yesterday?" They'd think I was insane. Still, I couldn't just leave it there. The neighbors might take it or call management, and I didn't want to drag anyone else into this. So I picked it up carefully and carried it inside, setting it on the kitchen counter. The smell hit immediately, stronger this time, metallic and sweet, like rotting fruit soaked in blood. I gagged and stepped back. The box pulsed, not literally, but it looked like it was breathing, expanding just a hair with each second. Then, a muffled sound from inside. Tap, tap, tap. That's when I lost my nerve. I grabbed the box, threw it into a trash bag, and sprinted down the hall to the building's dumpsters. But when I lifted the lid, there was already a box inside. Another one. Same size, same tape. And beside it was the wooden cube. My blood turned to ice. It was resting perfectly still on top of the trash, as if waiting for me. The symbols on its surface looked darker now, almost burned into the wood. I didn't touch it. I just dropped the new box, slammed the dumpster lid, and ran back inside. By the time I got to my apartment, my phone was buzzing again. Unknown number. Against all sense, I answered. This time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a recording, a distorted voice repeating my name over and over, each time slower. Evan. 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 Until it trailed into a low growl. Then, silence. I threw the phone on the couch and sat there shaking. I wanted to leave, but where would I go? The box, those boxes, seemed to follow me. I couldn't go to the cops. I couldn't explain any of this without sounding insane. At dawn, I finally dozed off for an hour or two. When I woke up, there was knocking at the door again. Not the bell, knocking. Soft, rhythmic, human. I didn't want to answer, but after the fifth knock, I couldn't ignore it. Through the peephole, I saw a woman, mid-30s, plain clothes, messy hair. Her eyes looked tired. When I cracked the door, she said in a hoarse voice, "You got my delivery." I blinked. "What?" She nodded at the floor behind me. "The box. It was meant for me." I hesitated, half opening the door. But something about her felt off. Her skin looked pale, almost grey, and there was a smell, faintly metallic, just like the package. "I don't have it anymore," I said. "You must be mistaken." Her lips twitched into a small smile. "No mistake. You took it. Now you keep it." And before I could respond, she turned and walked down the hall. But her footsteps didn't echo. She just moved, silently. When I tried to follow, she was gone. I barely left my apartment that day. Every sound in the building made me jump. The elevator, pipes, neighbors' doors. I kept catching movement in my peripheral vision, shapes darting behind me when I turned too slow. That night, my power went out. Not just in my unit, across the entire building. The emergency lights flickered red in the hallway, painting everything like a crime scene. And that smell came back again, thick, filling the air like fog. I grabbed a flashlight and checked the fuse box. Everything looked fine. But when I turned to go back inside, I saw something written on my door, scratched into the paint, deep enough to expose the wood underneath. "Return it." I didn't sleep at all that night. When the sun rose, I decided to leave. I packed a bag, stuffed some clothes inside, and got in my car. I didn't care where I went, just away. As I pulled out of the lot, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Someone was standing in the middle of the street behind me, hooded, perfectly still. I hit the gas. 2 hours later, I was driving along an empty stretch of highway through thick forest far from the city. My hands were shaking, my throat dry. I stopped at a diner to collect myself and get some coffee. When I came back to the car, there was a box sitting on the passenger seat. I didn't see anyone place it there. The doors had been locked. Same red tape. This time, though, there was something else. A note taped to the top. The handwriting was frantic, messy, and red. I told myself hallway, her hair wet, eyes wide open, mouth slightly parted as if whispering. She turned her head slowly, staring right into the peephole. And then she smiled. I stumbled back, heart pounding, when a heavy thud hit the door. Then another. Then silence. I waited for 10 minutes before working up the courage to look again. No one there. But when I looked down, a package sat at the threshold, smaller than the others, wrapped in plain brown paper. I didn't touch it. I just backed away and sat on the bed until morning light leaked through the blinds. When I finally opened the door, it was gone. Only an imprint remained on the carpet, like something heavy had sat there for hours. That was 3 nights ago. Since then, I've driven nearly 500 miles. I sleep in my car now, keep moving. But no matter where I go, the boxes keep showing up. At gas stations, in the back seat, once even inside a locked bathroom stall. Always sealed with that same red tape. Yesterday, I opened one. Inside was my own wallet, my ID cards, even the exact amount of cash I had when this all started. But the photo on the ID wasn't mine. It looked like me, older, thinner, with hollow eyes. The name under the photo wasn't Evan Miller anymore. It read recipient. I don't know what that means, but I have a feeling I'm about to find out. The doorbell rang again. 3 short, sharp chimes that echoed through my apartment like hammer strikes. I froze where I stood, staring at the door. I'd just finished pushing the heavy dresser back against it, hoping it would give me a few seconds if, whatever that thing was decided to try coming inside again. But now, hearing the bell chime so normally, so calmly, sent a different kind of fear through me. Things like that weren't supposed to follow rules. They weren't supposed to use doorbells. I swallowed hard. The air was heavy again, too heavy, like I was underwater. I could hear the faint static from my phone still lying on the kitchen counter, the delivery app open with the order history still visible. That cursed order, the one that wasn't mine. Hello? I don't know why I said it. Maybe I thought saying something would make this whole thing normal again. Maybe it would trick my brain into believing there was a reasonable explanation. But there was no answer. Just the faint creak of floorboards outside my door. I inched closer, the sound of my own heartbeat drowning out everything else. I leaned toward the peephole. For a moment, I saw nothing. Just the dim glow of the hallway light flickering against the walls. And then, movement. Someone was standing just outside the light's reach, too far to make out clearly. The shape was tall, almost scraping the top of the doorframe, but the edges, they weren't right, like the person wasn't solid. A faint shimmer surrounded them, like heat waves rising off asphalt. The longer I stared, the less human it looked. And then, just as my breath hitched, it waved, slowly, like it knew I was watching. The next second, the lights in the hallway went out. Total blackness. I stumbled back from the door, nearly tripping over the coffee table. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it at the door. I could hear something scraping against the wood. Not claws, not metal. It sounded like fingernails, dozens of them. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I grabbed my bag, my keys, and ran for the balcony door. I lived on the 3rd floor, and at that point, I didn't care. I climbed over the railing and dropped down onto the grass below. My ankle twisted on impact, sending a sharp pain up my leg, but adrenaline kept me moving. I ran through the parking lot barefoot, not even realizing until I reached the street that I was still clutching my phone. It was vibrating non-stop, notifications popping up one after another. Greater than, your delivery has been rescheduled. Your package is arriving tonight. Your delivery driver is approaching. Except I hadn't ordered anything. My heart was pounding as I looked around. The street was almost empty except for one vehicle parked under the flickering streetlight. A white delivery van. No logo. No license plate. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, or at least something that looked like one. He wore the same uniform as the guy who'd brought me the wrong package the first time. Same hat, same pale grey jacket. But his movements were off. Too stiff, too slow, like his joints didn't quite fit right. He turned his head toward me. Even from across the street, I could see the grins stretching across his face. Too wide, too flat. "Sir," he called out. His voice was calm, polite, too calm. "You forgot your package." He lifted something from the van, a box, small, plain, the same kind as before. "No," I shouted, backing away. "I told you, I didn't order anything." He kept walking toward me, his grin never changing. "It's yours now." I turned and ran. I didn't look back until I'd reached the gas station a few blocks down. The clerk inside stared as I burst through the door, panting, shaking, begging him to let me use the phone. He hesitated, eyes darting toward the parking lot behind me. "You okay, man?" I turned to look. The street was empty. No van, no driver, nothing. That should have been a relief, but I knew better by then. That thing, whatever it was, it didn't need roads or cars to follow me. It knew where I lived. It knew my name. It knew everything about me. And worst of all, it wanted me to take that damn box. For the next few days, I stayed at a friend's place across town. I didn't tell her the full story. How could I? I just said there'd been a weird break-in at my apartment, and I needed a place to crash. She didn't ask many questions, but even there, it followed me. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of something thudding lightly against the front door. Not knocking, just a soft tap, 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 like someone reminding me they were still waiting. One morning, I stepped outside to get some air and froze. Sitting on the doorstep was a box. Plain brown cardboard. No label, just my name written in black marker. I didn't touch it. I kicked it off the step and ran back inside. That night, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A text. "Greater than, please confirm delivery." I blocked the number. A minute later, another message came in. "Greater than, failure to accept may result in collection." My stomach turned. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, my friend found me half asleep on the couch, my phone still in my hand. She said I looked pale, sick, paranoid. Maybe she was right. But when she mentioned she'd ordered something from the same delivery app a week earlier, I felt my blood run cold. "Wait," I said. "What app?" She showed me. Same logo, same interface. But when she opened it, everything looked normal. Different color scheme, different company name. When I tried to show her mine, it didn't load. The screen just went black. For a moment, a single phrase appeared in red text. "Greater than, you already received your order." Then the app closed by itself. By the time a week had passed, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The ringing at my apartment door hadn't stopped. It followed me everywhere. At the gas station, at my friend's house, even at my office building. Always the same sound, always the same rhythm. Then one night, I got home and found a single slip of paper taped to my door. Final attempt, 12 a.m., delivery. I stood there, staring at it, for what felt like hours. The paper was wet, like it had been left out in the rain, but the words were dry. I should have called someone. I should have left town. But instead, I locked every window, every door, and sat in the dark, waiting. When the clock struck midnight, the doorbell rang again. Only once. This time, I didn't hide. I walked straight to the door, heart hammering. I looked through the peephole. No one there. But something was lying on the floor just outside the door. A package, smaller than the others. I reached out, hand trembling, and opened the door just enough to grab it. The air outside was freezing, thick with fog. I shut the door fast and backed away, staring at the box sitting on my table. It didn't have my name this time. Just a single phrase, greater than return to sender. I didn't understand. Return what? I hadn't even opened the first one. My hands were shaking as I tore the tape off. Inside was nothing. No, not nothing. Paper. Sheets of paper folded neatly. I pulled one out, and my breath stopped cold. It was a photograph of me, standing outside my apartment door, holding a box. The photo wasn't from today. It was from that first night. I could tell from the clothes, from the light. But that wasn't what froze me. In the background, behind me, inside the apartment, there was something else. A tall figure standing in the dark, just barely visible through the gap in the door. And on its face was the same grin as the delivery driver. Underneath the photo was another piece of paper, a delivery slip. The handwriting was the same looping script as before, greater than delivered successfully. Recipient, confirmed. Location, inside. I dropped the papers and stumbled back. My apartment felt colder suddenly. And then I heard it, from the hallway. That humming, low, off-key, familiar. I turned toward the sound, just as the lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the dark, I could still see the faint glow from the box on the table. It wasn't possible. It was just cardboard. But the edges pulsed with light. Then I heard the voice, soft close. Thank you for accepting delivery. Something moved behind me. I ran for the balcony again, but this time the door wouldn't budge. My hands were slick with sweat, slipping on the handle. I turned just in time to see the shape in the dark. A long, stretched shadow sliding along the floor, reaching for me. I screamed. I don't even remember jumping. When I came to, I was lying on the grass again, the world spinning above me. My head was pounding. I looked up toward my balcony and saw it. Something was standing there, watching. It was holding the box. And then, slowly, it waved. I don't live there anymore. I moved states, changed my number. I threw out my phone, my laptop, everything connected to that app. But still, every few nights, I hear it. The doorbell. 3 short rings. And when I check the door, there's nothing there, except a small slip of paper. Greater than, we will reattempt delivery. The next morning came slow. My body felt like it had been hit by a truck, but my mind was sharper than ever, too awake, too alert. The memory of the night before still clung to me like a film of cold sweat. The voice, the doorbell, the box, all of it felt too real to write off as some nightmare. When I went downstairs, the front door was locked, just like I left it. But there were muddy footprints, small, human-shaped, leading from the doorway toward the kitchen. Only 3 steps. Then they stopped, just stopped. I followed them, my stomach twisting. The prints didn't fade or smear. They just ended like whoever made them had vanished mid-stride. I didn't sleep much after that, but I had to keep going. I had to understand. The box was still sitting on the counter. I had taped it shut again, but it didn't look right. The tape bulged, like the cardboard was pushing outward from the inside. I thought about calling the police, telling them everything. But what would I say? That I received a package from someone who wasn't supposed to exist? That I heard whispering through my walls? They'd think I was out of my mind. So I did what any idiot in a horror story does. I decided to find out who sent it myself. I still had the shipping label from the first box, the one with my name and address, but no return info except a faint postmark. The ink had smudged, but I could make out 3 letters. D-A-L. Dallas, maybe. That was halfway across the country. That afternoon, I drove to the post office and showed the label to an older clerk named Miriam, who had worked there for years. The moment she saw it, her face went pale. She looked at me like I had handed her something rotten. "Where'd you get this?" she asked quietly. "It was on my porch last week." "Why?" She glanced over her shoulder, lowered her voice. "You didn't open it, did you?" My mouth went dry. "Yeah." Her hands trembled slightly. "You need to leave that thing somewhere far from your house. Burn it if you can. But don't. Whatever you do, don't let it inside again." I tried to press her for details, but she shook her head, clearly terrified. Before I could say anything else, she turned and disappeared into the back room. That should have been my cue to listen. But curiosity, and maybe fear, had their claws in me too deep. That night, I took the box out to the woods behind my neighborhood. It was cold, damp, and eerily silent. Even the crickets were gone. I set the box down, poured lighter fluid over it, and flicked the match. It caught instantly, flames curling and snapping up the sides. The smell was sickening, like burning hair and plastic. I stepped back, covering my nose, when something inside the box moved. There was a dull thump, then another, like something struggling to get out. The cardboard shifted and split open as the fire spread. For one horrible second, I saw something black and wet writhing inside, like a bundle of arms or roots, each tipped with pale fingers that clawed against the air. I stumbled back, tripping over a log. The flames roared higher, and that thing let out a sound. Not a scream, but a low, human moan that grew until it didn't sound human at all. I ran. I didn't look back until I reached my car, and even then, I wished I hadn't. The fire had gone out. Completely. The box was gone. Only a dark, circular mark remained in the dirt, smoking faintly. When I got home, I locked every door, every window, and sat awake until morning. The whole time, I could feel it. Something watching me. 2 days passed. No sound. No packages. For a moment, I thought maybe it was over. But on the 3rd night, the doorbell rang again. I froze. 3 soft chimes. Then silence. I stared at the door for what felt like hours before I finally worked up the nerve to peek through the peephole. The porch was empty, except for another box, smaller this time, wrapped in the same brown paper. I wanted to leave it there. I really did. But when I turned away, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Just 2 words. "It's yours." My heart slammed in my chest. I picked up the box with shaking hands. It felt heavier than it looked. There was no sound inside, no movement. I set it on the table, grabbed a knife, and cut it open. Inside was a small black envelope. No markings, no stamp. I opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph, an old Polaroid. The image was grainy, but I could make out what it showed. Me, standing in front of my house, holding the first box. Behind me, in the shadows, was a tall figure. Thin, too thin. Its head tilted toward the camera, its arms long enough to almost touch the ground. I dropped the photo like it burned me. Another picture was underneath. This one was newer. I could tell by the lighting. It was taken from inside my house, from the hallway. It showed me asleep on the couch. The envelope slipped from my hands. My breathing turned shallow. Someone had been inside. That's when the lights flickered. I turned slowly, every nerve screaming to run. And then I heard it again. That same low humming I'd heard in the woods. It was coming from the kitchen. I grabbed the nearest thing, a flashlight, and moved toward the sound. My hand was slick with sweat, my throat dry as bone. When I turned the corner, I saw it. The kitchen window was open, curtains swaying. On the counter was another Polaroid, freshly developed, still damp to the touch. It showed the back of my head. I spun around. Nothing there, just the faint echo of humming fading into the walls. That was the night I left my house. I didn't take anything except my wallet, keys, and phone. I drove until I ran out of gas and checked into a roadside motel 2 towns over. I thought I could outrun it. But 2 days later, the clerk at the front desk called up to my room. "Hey," he said, "a delivery came for you." My stomach dropped. He laughed a little nervously. "It's weird though. There's no return label, just your name. You want me to bring it up?" I told him no. I told him to throw it away. That night, around midnight, the doorbell rang again. Except there was no doorbell in that motel. I went to the peephole. Nothing there. No sound, no footsteps. But when I turned back toward the bed, there was something waiting on it. A brown paper box, perfectly square. My hands trembled as I reached for it. But before I could touch it, it moved, just slightly, and from inside came the faintest sound, a hum, low, familiar, then a whisper. "You shouldn't have opened it." The lights went out. The next morning, the motel manager found the room empty, the door locked from the inside. The only thing left was the box, unwrapped, untouched, sitting neatly in the center of the bed. And inside, when they finally opened it, was a Polaroid photo. A photo of the manager himself, standing at the doorway,